Thank you, John. Well, it's my pleasure to be here tonight to talk a little bit about life in the academy. Let me draw a line up here and so life in the academy. That John told me that's what you're thinking about talking about. What's it all about? What can you do in the academy? What is the academy? All those things. I'm going to put as A, life in the academy. My life, you don't know anything about it, but you're going to get to figure it out tonight because you're going to guess a lot of things about me. Now, my mathematical area, when I was active as a research mathematician, was inverse problems. Now, an inverse problem is one where you get data and you try to guess what's out there. So, for example, if someone knocks on a door and it's a solid door and I have to guess who's out there, I've got no clue. If it's a big booming knock, I might say, well, it's someone big. I could be wrong. The size has nothing to do with the volume of the knock. But if it's a translucent glass door, I would be able to know from the knock and from seeing the image through the translucent glass, okay, it's a tall person, it's a short person, wide person, narrow person, whatever. If it's a clear glass door, then I've got it made. I know exactly who's out there. I may not know what they do, what they're trying to sell or whatever, but the more information I get, the clearer picture I get about what's out there. Now, the kind of problems I looked at were problems where you shoot radar out into space, it hits something, it comes back, and from what comes back, you have to guess what's out there. Its size, its shape, its density, any number of properties of it. So what you're trying to remote sense, if you will, is my life. And you get to probe remotely with questions. Any question you want. If it's too personal or too embarrassing, I won't answer it. That means you'll have incomplete information. But this line is the line of my life. You have a line in your life. It started somewhere, it's where it is now, and it's heading somewhere. And if you think about it, what it really is from, let's say then, well, let's put born, because you're going to have to guess that, to now. So let's just put President EIU. From here on, it's a decision tree. I'm going to have decisions to make tomorrow, the next day, the next, and so forth and so on. There are all sorts of things that are going to happen in my life that may cause me to branch off, and I don't know where I'll be 3, 4, 5 years from now. Just like you don't know where you're going to be. Now, you got ideas, you have dreams, you have passions. You're going to be somewhere, and what you're doing now, by being here at EIU and being in honors, is going to drive that. And what I want to talk about today and get you to sense for me is, what were the turning points? What were those things that, like tripping over the chair? I mean, it could have died right now. You know, it could have been, oh, that's it, you know, no more tree. So, but talk about a little bit about the things that happened to me and why I decided I wanted to do something. Okay, when was I born?
August 19.
1946.
1946. Somebody said, that's close.
1978.
It's close enough. 1945. December 1945. Now, where was I born? You know, you've got my speech patterns and things like that. Where was I born? What country, what state? Not Texas. Not Texas, y'all. You're plural, so it's all y'all. I learned that when I was in Texas. I was in Texas for 36 years, and that comes up about somewhere here.
Kentucky.
No.
Indiana.
I was born in a state, was settled by people from Kentucky.
Tennessee. Illinois.
That doesn't help.
Missouri. Actually, Missouri. I was born in the northern part of the state. So I was born in Missouri in 1945. All right. And then I started growing up. And I went to high school, okay, like all of you. So, and then something happened that changed my life. Can you guess what it was? That's good, yes. I did graduate, 1963. All right. What happened when I was in high school? What happened to you that maybe changed your life or what you want to do? what you thought you wanted to study? Gee, was high school that vacuous?
Did you take a math class?
Well, what?
Did you take a math class?
I took a math class, but more than that because I took 4 of them, one each year, but
A teacher?
a teacher, all right, a teacher, Miss Hale. Miss Hale was wonderful. Miss Hale grew up in Missouri. She went to Northwest Missouri Teachers College and became a math teacher and made me love math. I had a good teacher as a freshman, but she made me love math. But more than that, she made me want to help other people learn. And even more than that, she expected a lot of me and she expected maturity. So I had her for geometry, plain geometry, sophomore year, and second year algebra in junior year. And of course, by the time you're a junior, you think, hey, we're pretty hot stuff now. You know, we can stand up by the bell in the lobby. When you were a sophomore and freshman, you couldn't do that. And we were feeling our oats, and we were doing all sorts of stuff in second year algebra. We were throwing spit wads at the chalkboard, sticking on the board. She never said anything. We started to get nervous. So I was elected by my classmates to go ask Miss Hale about what was going on. So they said, Leon, because my middle name is Leon, Leon, you got to go find out what's going on. So I went up to Miss Hale and I said, Miss Hale, you know we're acting up. We know you know we're acting up. How come you haven't said anything? And she gave the coolest answer ever. Well, Leon, all little boys grow up someday. I went back and delivered the message, and everything was smooth from there on. But I knew from that experience, from learning in that class, and from that response she gave, that teachers can have a great impact on students. That was very important to me. All right. Then my senior year of high school, I had a teacher who said, hey, I'm taking a class on the weekends at Rockhurst College, a private college there in Kansas City. Would you like to go? Sit in on it. I said, sure. It was a matrix algebra class. And what dawned on me then was there were all these grown-up people taking a class on the weekend so that they could learn more math. And I thought, well, math is maybe even more important than I thought it was. So I decided I want to teach, so I figured I better find out what you need to do that. I asked Miss Hale, she said, well, you got to go to college. All right, where did I go to college?
Rockhurst.
Nope.
The Northwest Teachers College?
No.
Zoo.
I would have gone to a state school. I might have gone to a school back east. I've been accepted at some and alternate on others. And one day, over the loudspeaker comes the principal. Leon Perry, report to Coach Dowell's office. Well, it's usually trouble when you have to report to the coach's office, right? But what it turned out was that there was this little college I didn't even know about, 30 miles away from home. And the basketball coach there, in that little school in that town, that was a town that was in our conference. And so he said, would you like to come to Park College and play basketball? And of course, I'm 17 years old, and I think basketball is the most important thing in my life. And I said, sure. So I went up and visited the campus, really liked it. It was a school of 500 students. 500, about half the size of my high school. And that's why I went to Park College. Now, why is that important? Two things happened to me there. Really more than two. But one was a great liberal arts education, which you can get here at Eastern with your general education requirements and the way you pick your electives. Because I learned a lot about who I was, what the world was about, and what my potential was. All right, so that's one thing. What else do you suppose happened to me there? I met my wife. That's right. I never would have met her if I hadn't been called to Coach Dowell's office. I wouldn't have been called to Coach Dowell's office if my parents hadn't encouraged me to be a good student and also to do my best in athletics. There's another thing that happened. I needed to choose graduate school, because what happened was I get to Park College and I look at the professors there and I think, this is a great life. You got an office, you get to work with students, you got small classes, you get to hang out in the student union, you can go down to the gym and shoot baskets if you want. I mean, it looked like a great life. And so I said to them, I said, what do I need to do to get this kind of job? And what do you suppose they said? Say it again? Graduate school. Exactly. So I applied to graduate schools. And being from the Midwest, I applied to a whole bunch of graduate schools in the Midwest. One out west where I didn't get in. That's another story. But U of I, Iowa State, University of Iowa, University of Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, that whole deal there. And I got accepted and everything. Then I had to choose which one. Well, I didn't know what to do. But I got lucky. Because, and this is an opportunity you have at Eastern Illinois University, you have the opportunity to go hear professors come and speak in the areas that you're interested in, and you'll get a chance to talk to them afterwards, and you can ask them questions that are important to you. So this professor, who was from Canada actually, was well known across the world for his work, came and gave a talk to us, and I still remember the title of it. I remember exactly what he looked like. The thing I remember most was after the talk, we got to sit down and talk with him. And I said, Professor May, where should I go to graduate school? He said, well, where have you been accepted? And I gave him the list. He said, go to the University of Illinois. That's the best of that bunch. I said, okay. And that's how I ended up going to the University of Illinois for graduate school in mathematics. On the word of someone I met once in my life, because he was a mathematician and he was well known and he kind of knows the landscape. So that chance of him coming to talk there and the ability to sit and talk with him gave me the opportunity to choose a really great graduate school. Okay. 4 years later, close to finishing, time to get a job. Well, at that time, if you looked at the graph of PhDs in math, if you look in about 5 years each side of that, it was the absolute maximum. I sent out 250 letters to try to get job interviews and got one response. Back in New York, small private school. Looked like an interesting opportunity. But then about that time, a person who had been a faculty member at the University of Illinois and then gone on to State University of New York at Buffalo and then was at Texas A&M University called the department head at the University of Illinois and said, you got anybody graduating in applied math? He said, yeah, we got this guy, he's really great. His name's Heiho, and he's really, really good, but he's a Canadian citizen, and after he gets done, he's going back. Oh, and there's this guy named Perry. And he said, I'll ask him to send you his resume. So I did, and because of a connection of a person who had taught there, gone somewhere else, and checked back, I got the chance to get a job and ended up getting the job there. At Texas A&M. Now, before I went there, how many times do you suppose I'd been in Texas? Zero. Exactly. I'd never been in Texas. I'd never been in College Station, Texas. I didn't know anything much about Texas A&M except it looked like there was the possibility of a job. By the way, when I was at the U of I, and I looked at the life of the professors there, I thought, this is an even better deal than my professors at Park College. So, I asked them, because I was working on my master's, because the professors at Park had said, you got to get your master's. And then I got to U of I, and they said, oh, you got to get your PhD. So it just keeps going on and on. So we load everything that we have into a U-Haul trailer, hook it onto the Chevy, and we drive to Texas. And we get there, and it's totally different than the Midwest. The grass is different, the heat's different. I mean, we were driving in August, the car kept overheating. We didn't know what we had gotten into, because I'd never visited the campus, not even for a job interview. All the job interviews were out at remote spots. But we got there, visiting assistant professor, 1-year position, just going to see how it works out. Well, it did work out. And it worked out for 36 years. So, all right. So what do you suppose happened in those 36 years? I'm sorry.
Raised family.
Raised a family. That's right. 2 kids, they're grown. One's 40, one's 30. I have 1 grandson. They both live in Texas. They're Texans. They're all Texans. What else happened? What did I do? Yeah, I actually went back in October of '71 for my final defense at the U of I. And then the degree was granted in February of '72. What else happened? What did I do? What was my job?
Taught math.
Taught math, right, I taught math. Now when you start out as an assistant professor. And you've got 6 years to prove yourself up in research and teaching and service. And was fortunate enough to pass that hurdle and became what comes after assistant? Associate professor. And then you keep going, and then what happens?
Full professor.
Professor, right. Something happened right here that I could connect back to right here later in my mind. And I'm going to take 10 minutes now to ask you a question. Explain what happened to me. So I'm going to ask a question and explain what happened to me. The question is, what's your word? What is your word? Now what I mean by that is not your word is your bond, okay? Your word is your promise or anything like that. But do you have a word, do you have something that gets you through when times are a little bit tough? Do you have a word that gives you kind of a North Star that you can look to, that guides you along, that pulls you along in what you're trying to do in life? Now there's over 100 people in the room, there's probably over 100 words. I didn't know I had a word until right there. And the reason that I realized what my word was because I had a job interview. Now what happens in the academy is you can go through this process and become a professor, and you can be a professor the rest of your life. It's great fun. It's a wonderful job. I love teaching. I love research, all that. Some universities have a distinguished professor rank after that, but it's a great life. But sometimes people say, you know, I think you could do administration. Now, you got to remember that in the academy, administration is not always viewed as a positive thing, right? Because administrators have to make decisions that sometimes are hard and affect people negatively, all right? So it's not something everyone aspires to. But because there were some things I was interested in the College of Science, which is where mathematics was there, that had to do with access to science and mathematics, things I could get done from the dean's office that I had started doing in the math department, but just needed to do it from a different place. This job came open as associate dean. And so I tossed in my resume, and the committee said, okay, you're one of 4 finalists. Now you got to interview with the dean. All right, now I'm really scared, okay? Because I got to go in and sit down with the dean, who is this world-renowned chemist with a huge lab, lots of graduate and undergraduate students doing research and everything. I mean, this guy can do it all. Real nice guy, but you know, just, it's like you're walking in with someone that, you know, I can't compare. I'm not worthy, you know? So I'm prepared for the interview, right? You think you're prepared. If you've ever interviewed for anything, you think you're prepared for it. Interviewed for a scholarship, interviewed for a job. So I go in, I sit down, he's across the desk, and the first question he asks totally stumps me. He says, Bill, what drives you when you come into the university every day? And all of a sudden, time slows down. It seems like it's forever, this vacuum of time forever, and I've got to fill it up with something. And I start thinking to myself, why am I doing this? And I think back to when, after washing blackboards and sweeping dorms and, you know, shingling roofs as a student worker and working in the kitchen on it, I finally got to get a job tutoring and grading papers. I thought, this is great. I'm helping college students learn now. I'm helping freshmen learn, and I'm only a junior in college. I thought back to the thrill I would get whenever I was advising a student and they had a problem, and I could help them get that class they needed for graduation, could help them with some problems they were having in class, and it all kind of started to go together. And then I remembered my freshman year of college, October, even though it's a school of only 500, I don't feel like a part of the community yet. Do you ever get that feeling? You're in a new situation. Am I really part of something here? Now you guys are fortunate to have a group like this, a smaller group within a larger group, a group to build community with. And within this group, I'm sure there are even smaller groups that you've formed up alliances and relationships with people. But I remember I walked out of the old main there, and I bumped into this guy wearing a suit. Didn't know who he was. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, you know. He said, oh, that's okay. And he talked with me for about 5 minutes. That's all it took, 5 minutes. All of a sudden, I felt like, hey, I belong here. I'm part of something bigger than myself. I'm part of something that's going to change my life. I found out later it was the president of the college. And when I found that out, I thought, wow, that's really neat to be able to make a person feel, in a very short period of time, feel like they're part of something really important, part of a community that I fit in. So all that's running through my head like that. It couldn't have been more than 2 seconds. It seemed like 2 hours. And so I said, students. And then I thought, ooh, a complete sentence would have been a better answer. I'm in a university. I'm a professor. But he was very kind. He said, could you elaborate on that? And I did. And so by blurting out the word, I had gained time. I had understood myself. In a moment, I had understood myself. It was all there all along, but I was forced to encapsulate it, to condense it. And so I did. We talked about it. I got the job. And I was able to work with the College of Science and Engineering together, and we did a lot of great things, grants to bring more and more students and minorities and women into the sciences, research, internships. It was really a wonderful, wonderful experience. So think about what your word is. It could be loyalty. It could be friendship. It could be hard work. That's 2 words, but you can count it as one. Effort, perseverance, you name it. You started this semester, I think, putting up a bunch of words, and John sent me the graphic, yeah, with all the words and sized by frequency of occurrence, and all that. I loved all those words. Those were great words. Those were great words. And I'm guessing that some of those words are maybe your word. And so somewhere along the line, you'll come to a time, I think, where you say, what's that word? What's that anchor? What's that foundation for what I'm doing? Okay, so a fairly traditional path in the academy. So I get into administration, and then here's another thing that happens in the academy. There are a few administrators and a lot of faculty, and as you start out at this rank and go to this rank and this rank, and ultimately if you're going to get into administration, and if at some point you believe that you've got something to offer as, say, a president of a university, something that you can serve a university well because of all the experience you've had, because of your values and how well your values might match up with a university, you start thinking, well, maybe I could do that. I started thinking, well, maybe I could be like that president back at Park College who made me feel like part of something important, something bigger than myself, who made me feel like I belonged. And that all fit in right in there with my word of students. All along, since I had that realization, that's been the word that's driven me. And so, one day, I get a call from someone who works for a search firm, and they said, you know, someone's given us your name for president of Eastern Illinois University. I found out later it was someone who had a relative here who had an ancestor who was involved in the charter of the university somehow. Really a circuitous path. And so I said, well, I'll take a look. I'll take a look. Little things make a difference. And here's the example. So I sent in my resume, very well treated by everyone, process working very smoothly, and I make it to the, quote, airport interview stage. You'll find that someday, whatever career you pick, as you're moving along, you are applying for different jobs. Sometimes they'll interview off-site from the actual place of business. And so the airport interview is in Champaign-Urbana. So I say to myself, I'm going up a couple of days early, and I'm just going to walk around the campus. I'm going to be the secret shopper. So come up early. I stayed in what was in the Best Western and now is Unique Suites. And so I put on my blue jeans and my leather jacket and hooked it on over to campus and just parked somewhere near Old Main. And I didn't know where to go, but when I saw the castle, I said, this is the place, right? This is where I start. So I walk onto campus, and there's a guy with a pickup truck throwing branches into the back of the pickup truck. So I walk up to him and I say, what's going on? He says, well, we had an ice storm and some branches fell. It's spring break. Students aren't here, so I'm just kind of cleaning up and everything. And I said, oh, okay. He said, well, can I help you? And I said, oh, not really. I drive around the country visiting campuses, and just when I'm near a college, I just drop in to see what's happening. And in other words, I made it up. And he said, oh, well, let me tell you about EIU. So this guy takes me into Old Main. He shows me the pictures of all the presidents. He shows me that there was a scale model of the campus there that's now gone because it's out of date. Had a little dinosaur someone had put in there at one point. And he explains where everything is. And I said, and we walked back out, and I said, well, what's in that building over there? He says, it was this building. He said, oh, that's physical sciences building. And he says, you got geology and geography, you got physics, you got chemistry, you got psychology. I said, oh, that's so what's happening? He said, that's Pemberton Hall. He said, that was the first women's dorm in the history of Illinois. And I said, well, what's that over there? And he's going through it all. And then I said, you got a lot of trees here you have to clean up after. He says, oh, yeah, we got, I can't remember, 46 different species. I said, really, can I get a list? He says, oh, yeah, the biology department's right down. He knew everything. And I said to myself, here's the guy with the pickup truck. picking up the branches, and he knows everything about this place. Well, his name is Larry Shobe. He's still here. If you see a guy with kind of blonde hair out working on these special plantings we have on the campus, that's Larry. And I said to myself, if this guy is any example of what EIU is like, what its people are like, then I'm in. I'm going to follow up on this. And so then the airport interviews, then the interviews on campus, and I just became enchanted with Eastern. But the most important thing was, when I looked at the students and the faculty here, I knew this was the kind of place I would love to be. Because this was the kind of place where people believed in excellence. That's why you're here. You're honors students. You're high achievers. You want to be tested. You want to find out what you've got. You're going to show us your excellence. Personal relationships. You're going to have small classes. You're going to get to know professors, and you're going to get mentored. They're going to lead you on study abroad. They're going to help you with undergraduate research. There's all sorts of things they're going to do to help you with that. The size was perfect. If it was too small, it wouldn't have been enough of a challenge for me. If it was too big, and A&M when I left was 50,000 students. If it was too big, I wouldn't be able to have the kind of connections I had. I wouldn't be able to come to a class like this on a Wednesday night because there'd be other political things I'd have to be doing. So this was the perfect place for me because I believe in excellence, personal relationships, opportunity, and service. Now you know about service. If you're a new student, Jumpstart to Give, it's something we're really good at. You know, we were recognized by the President's honor roll on community service and so forth and so on. But opportunity is the big thing. Because from this place right here, you can go anywhere and do anything. And I would not have known back here right here that I could ever have done it. And I'm not sure I really had a plan. But I had two things. I had a vision of what a president could do, and I had a word: students. And I've been fortunate enough to put them together. To serve as a president at a great school like Eastern Illinois University, and to act it out in terms of what I can do in the best interest of the students of the university. So, there are a lot of lives in the academy. This is just one, but it could have gone a lot of different directions. Got a couple of more minutes here. When I graduated from college, I thought, well, maybe I don't want to go on and do this teaching thing. I'll go try to look for a job. Well, Park College is in Kansas City, Missouri. I saw Hallmark Cards was hiring people with mathematical ability. So I said, I'll go check it out, you know, Hallmark Cards. When you care enough to send the very best, you know, I'll like it. The Crown Center down there in Kansas City. So I go down and I take a test. And I passed the test, surprise, the math test. I passed the test, and then I talked to this person, and he says, I said, well, what would I be doing? He said, well, here's what we do when we develop a greeting card. There's a certain kind of paper, there's a certain kind of ink, there's a certain kind of development costs. We've got to pay the people who write the sentiment and all that kind of stuff. And so what we do for every card, we have a little card, and each department, I'm oversimplifying this, each little card has a line for that separate cost. And then where you would be working is when that card comes and you add up the numbers. And then you take that number and you pass it along to the next department. And you know what I thought? I said, I'm going to grad school. Opportunities you should always look at. Always pick the one that points toward what your dream and your passion is. Because I never forgot what Miss Hale wrote in my yearbook after my senior year. Leon, ain't math grand? Miss Hale. I knew it was grand, and I wanted to teach it to other students. I wanted students to understand it. But at some point, the idea of serving students from a different place made sense to me. And yes, I don't get to teach as much as I used to. I've taught twice since I've been here in 5 years. I'm hoping to do something next year again. It was a wonderful experience. Small class, great students. Great students just like you. I knew when I walked onto campus that first time, and maybe it happened for you when you did the campus visit, and when I talked with Larry Shobe, I knew right then that if this worked out, it was going to be great. So here I am, the president. How old am I?
47.
You're not in my math class. Well, you know when I was born? 67. Close to it, yeah. My birthday is actually December 3rd, so let's don't get in a hurry. Okay, I'm 66. I'll be 67. I feel like I'm 36. I have the energy most of the time that I had when I was 36. And I can't imagine being anywhere else doing any other thing in my life. And I hope that that's what you feel here at Eastern, that you feel like part of something big here, and that this is where you want to be. All right, last 5 minutes. Tell me about that tree out there for me. You've got some information about me. You've seen me walk around, okay? You've seen how I dress, at least as a president. You know how I talk, how I walk, how I move, all that kind of stuff. Some of the things I've done in the past. So, what do you see in the tree for me? What are the possibilities for me? Retirement. All right, true. Retirement, we have to decide what that means. Let's say that after I'm president, we'll call that retirement, but that doesn't mean I'm sitting on the rocking chair, okay? Or the lazy boy. What are some possibilities there?
Buy a beach house.
What's that?
Buy a beach house.
A beach house. Sounds pretty good. What's that?
Scratch golfer.
Okay, we're going to put that in the low probability, P less than 0.01, scratch golfer.
Write a book on life.
Wait, say it one at a time. A writer. Ah. I like to write poetry. It's not very good. I actually had a chance to go over to Charleston High School within the last couple of years. The honors English teacher invited me over to share some of my poetry, and some of the students actually thought it was pretty good. I thought what they wrote was really good. It's hard to share poetry if you write it. It's hard to share anything that you write because, man, I'm putting myself out there. But I find that writing helps me deal with things sometimes. It helps. All right, writer, someone else said?
Motivational speaker.
Motivational speaker. All right, that sounds pretty good. Go talk for an hour and inspire some people. Money doesn't matter. See, money doesn't matter, okay? Motivational speaker. Others? Travel, absolutely. I love languages. I'm not very good at them. I do Rosetta Stone almost every night. So, but I'm not very good at it. But I try to get enough so when I travel, I'm not totally lost. Okay, travel, awesome. Great way to learn. I think they had study abroad when I was in college, but not where I was. Great opportunity you all have. Plus, you've got international students here at Eastern, and you have an opportunity to meet them. You can study abroad without traveling, okay, just by getting to know some of the international students we have here. Okay, a couple of more opportunities for me here.
Basketball coach.
Basketball coach. Well, I did that, youth basketball coach and all that. It was really great. I had a very embarrassing moment once. Game's close. It's getting down near the end. Our team scores a basket. I think we've just gone ahead by 1 point. And I jump, yeah, way to go, And the other coach looking at me like, hey, this guy's crazy. We were up 11. I'd lost track of the score. All right? Gotta be careful. I think you can do a lot. Coaching, tutoring, there's lots of things you can do to help young people. Any others?
Volunteer work.
Volunteer, absolutely. I believe in service, and that's one of the great things about Eastern. So volunteer work. And the list could go on and on. What you need to do is think where you are right now and think of all those possibilities. And don't get confused by them, because if I try to do all of that, it's not going to happen. Think of all the things you can do and focus, narrow it down a little bit, but not too much. Because one of the great things about college is you're going to get to learn a lot about a lot of things, and then a lot about something very special to you. You're here because you're smart, you're motivated, and you made a great choice for college. You got great faculty and staff here. Our goal is your success. You can find your passion here. You've got the drive. When you draw your line, you know all about it up till right now. All you know in the future is there's a bunch of branches that you could take. What's your word? What's your passion? Put them together. Sky's the limit. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.